Hello, everyone. Welcome to podcast number 9. Today, I'm going to talk about when and if you stop working, and when and if you should go on disability. So, the answer is really it depends. Um, Everyone's situation is so different. First of all, what type of work do you do? And what are your symptoms from? I'm living with primary progressive MS. My specific disease um, creates cognitive issues, tons of fatigue, and then physical issues where I have difficulty, you know, being able to move. So the cognitive stuff is triggered by process thinking and um, me reading, processing information, a lot of reading websites, books, anything in length, for example. So, but a lot of people, because MS is the snowflake disease, and I'm going to talk about MS because that's really what I know. But this whole conversation can be for disease in general. But um, if you don't have those issues, perhaps you don't have cognitive issues, and you work from home, and you work on a computer, and you're able to do what you do without it having affect you. Um, God bless. And if you could keep working, then keep working. Um, it depends, financially, where are you? Um, where's your bank account? How are you set up financially? Um, do you have kids? How old are the kids? Do you have to pay for college? Um, there's just so many things. So I realize saying it depends is not a terrific answer, but I'm really sorry. It depends on your situation. Everybody's situation is different. Um, when I used to run a support group uh, out of Shrewsbury, I used to help with it. There was someone that has been living with MS for years, progressive form of MS, but he doesn't have cognitive issues. A lot of his work is on the computer, and he's able to continue working, full time, I believe. Uh, I know someone else that, you know, worked in the insurance business and a different support group that was able to work part time. So it really depends. It depends on your situation. Depends on what you do for a living. Um, I personally, I've been in. I have my own business for 10 years with partners in a plumbing, heating, air conditioning business, and then I went on to run sales divisions and run sales myself in the heating and air conditioning business. I had to drive all over the state. Um, drive, I had to crawl up into attics, go down into crawl spaces, basements, meet with people for hours at a time. Um, so the fatigue, the cognitive wear and tear, all that just picked me apart. And it just was too many car accidents, falling down steps, falling down in the office. It just my disease caught up to me where I thought I could push through, which obviously if you didn't have cognitive issues of fatigue and with MS, that pushing through isn't really an option most of the time. Being smart, um, working smarter not harder is the way to go. So these days, obviously, I haven't planned, but at the time, I could not drive all over the place, get into three car accidents. I totaled the car at one point, um, and I had to stop. It was just, I was also screwing up my work. Um, Cognitively, I couldn't concentrate the way I needed to, and I was missing things. So, yeah, it depends. Depends on what you have. And then, the next part of this is disability, if you happen to be working for a company that offers disability insurance, um, private disability insurance, which will give you a much larger portion of your income, then please take it. I didn't have that. I did not work for a company that provided that option. So there are many people I've met that have this disease or have other diseases that have private disability insurance, and it can help with the financial burden quite a bit. You're able to take what would be a portion of a percentage of your salary, which is a larger percentage, and still live comfortably or reasonably comfortably, depending on your situation. So next thing is um, Social Security disability insurance. First of all, it's not a lot. There's not a big pot to pull from. But I guess I need to be thankful that it's there, because if there was nothing, what would we do? And there is a top number that you max out at each year. I'm not going to get into that because I'm in New Jersey, and every state is different. But yeah, if because of how I did in my career, um, my income was significant enough where I was able to take that top, close to the top number um, for disability insurance. If you have kids, they provide income for each child up to 18 that helps provide your paying bills, food, just support for those kids. Um, so I want to get into this a little bit, and back when I first got diagnosed, I eventually had to stop working. A year and a half or so into that, I had to. My parents had to move out of their house, and I remember it was a nightmare. My mom had to go into the nursing home. My dad was trying to help me with stuff, but we had to rent a big dumpster to throw everything into, and I remember a person would come by a couple times a week, and whatever larger, we were getting rid of wash machines and a refrigerator and any junk. And I remember this person he was literally loading a refrigerator into the back of his pickup truck, and very nice guy. We got into a conversation, and he mentioned to me that I'm like, well, how do you really take this stuff down to the scrapyard and make money? I'm like, do you really make enough money to survive doing this? And he said, well, I'm on disability. I'm like, you're what? He goes, yeah, I have a bad back. Now, I just witnessed this man load a refrigerator into the back of his pickup truck. Um, so I was just puzzled. He was on Social Security disability, and yeah, he was loading refrigerators and junk into the pickup truck and getting rid of it. So um, the issue is, what I found out, and I found this out because at my MS support group, we had a guest speaker years back, Greg Hobby, who is a Social Security disability attorney. And he came in and spoke to us several times. And when he spoke, um, he explained that the system is so overwhelmed. Um, the Social Security disability system has so many applicants trying to get this money from the government that they're forced to be in a situation where they have to choose. And there are that's happened because there are so many fake applicants. There are people faking it that want to get free money, unfortunately. Um, and the situation he explained it was that they are looking for, because there's so many applicants, they're looking for any reason to send your paperwork back and say no. So, for example, I chose, and I'll get into this in a little bit. I chose to use this person to help me. He came in. He would take a fixed amount of money of your back. You know what happens is if you get approved for disability, you get a check for money going back from the start of when you um, should have been disabled, considered disabled. It takes, for me, it took probably a year and a half to get approved. So if you could, whatever money that was, it was a year and a half backwards. And this attorney, that's how he makes his living off of this. Is he takes a portion of that money, fixed amount. I believe it was $6,000. Don't hold me to that. That's in New Jersey. Um, but anyway, the way he explained it was, if you don't, I'd received, even with an attorney, I received a book of paperwork, that redundant questions to fill out, and it was paperwork that you had to be answered with a pen and paper. It wasn't like you could log in to a computer. That wouldn't help me anyway. But so they were looking for if you didn't answer any question the way that they wanted, you didn't dot every I, cross every T. Your questions, they would ask you over and over again when you first started experiencing symptoms, the doctors, what the doctors had said to you. You had to back all this up with proof of your doctor's visits and things like that. But they kept asking the same questions over and over and over again. And if you weren't consistent with your answers, they would take your stuff and send it back, and you had to start from scratch. So they were looking for any reason to put somebody off because of that and knock them out of the system. Now, if that happens, you can appeal, and this is a lot of times this is where having an attorney helps, because the attorney would go with you to the appeal, where you sit before a judge and plead your case. Now, because of the amount of people that are applying for a Social Security disability, the way my attorney explained it is this. Imagine if you're a judge and you could only approve one out of every three people. And the three people you would choose from were a quadruple amputee, somebody with stage 4 cancer, and somebody with primary progressive multiple sclerosis. And as a judge, because of the numbers, you could only approve one of those three people for disability insurance. Now, that's how insane it's become. The system is so overwhelmed with people applying for disability that it puts it back on these judges to make a decision, and they have to choose behind crap like this. It's really terrible. Even with that, there are people that choose to try to do it on their own. Um, personally, we were in a position where, we relied heavily on my income. My wife Michelle had to go back to work. At the time, all of our children were young. Mikey was 12, roughly 12, 13. Sean and Shanna were, 7, 8. So the kids were young, and we had to rely on Michelle. Had to go back to work. I did receive temporary disability for a year, but that ran out. So we were really under the gun here. So Michelle helped me as much as she could, but it was just too much. I mean, working full time and trying to make sure that I answer questions correctly. I remember getting a phone call. I was going to therapy. I remember getting a phone call that I answered, and it was somebody from Social Security Disability, and they were asking me questions about my paperwork, and I was, at the time, I was, cognitively, I'm struggling with fatigue, And I'm trying to remember like what I'd said on the paperwork, and I didn't expect this phone call. This is just out of the blue. Um, so I answered the best I could. Um, like I mentioned, it took about a year and a half, but I did get approved for Social Security disability. I ended up having to go down there with my attorney um, to do the final paperwork and get everything squared away. Actually sit in front of somebody that evaluated you. Um, the advantages of using an attorney versus doing it yourself. The attorney, first of all, they know that the percentages of people that have an attorney will get approved because the attorney knows what to look for. They go over your case, go over your paperwork over and over and over again. So the percentages of people getting approved, I'm told, are higher when you have an attorney with you. That doesn't say that if you don't have if you don't have an attorney, you don't want to use an attorney. That's up to you. If you have somebody or you are very detail oriented and you get through the paperwork, you want to try. God bless. The reason um, I even chose the attorney Greg Hobby that I did was because he had helped two people that were rejected. Uh, Two people tried themselves and they were rejected. And I think I believe they only have one more chance to get approved. So they had to hire this attorney, and he got him through the process and got him approved. So, again, it's really up to you. Do you want to use an attorney or don't you? Uh, it's a personal choice. Based on financial position and our situation with the kids. Um, I chose to use an attorney. It was in my our best interest as a family to get this done quickly and make sure there were no screw ups because we could not afford another another period of time where there wasn't steady income coming in. So when do you stop working? It's up to you. Um, do you go on disability? That's up to you. Oh, and this is something I don't want to forget. Um, you are, if you're able to work, even part time, you can still work part time. You have to record your hours. There's a way you do it through disability, and whatever money that you would have gotten, they deduct that money that you got paid from your work out of that. So some people still work and they still file with disability that they've worked. Um, the challenge with that is that unfortunately, what I'm told is if disability sees that you can work, even part time, then they're going to question should you be working full time. Even myself, after being on disability for uh, a few years, I had to refile my case to because they were questioning, they wanted me to support that I could not work full time anymore, and I had to do that. It was, I haven't heard from them since, thank God. But yeah, it did happen to me a few years in. They just wanted to check up, and it's a shame because if you're making a good salary and a good income, if you made commission, if you made bonuses, if you made a good salary, um, the way they look at it is, if you could go flip burgers at McDonald's, then get paid minimum wage, they would say, all right, you can still work. There's something you can still do. Even if you made, ridiculous amounts of money more than that, they would still say that's work. So the system sucks. I'm sorry. It's there's only so much money that we have, and they can only approve so many people. So you know, thank God, I personally made sure I made the best choice for my family, made the best choice for me, um, put myself in the best position to get the money, disability money each month because I knew I couldn't make the income I used to, and too many car accidents, too many falls. So You got to make the decision. It's personal. Okay, I think that's it. I'm good for today.
All right.
All right.
Cool.